It began like a whisper that refused to die, a low hum in the digital dark. A rumor so explosive it could topple reputations and rewrite everything. We thought we knew about the people behind those polished smiles. When the audio leaked, that chilling, unmistakable voice of Steve Sarowitz, speaking to Claire. In tones too intimate for a man of his power. The world stopped pretending. The facade shattered. It wasn't just another celebrity scandal. It was a revelation that cracked through the illusion of perfection, spilling secrets that had been guarded for years. The clip was short, hauntingly clear, and once it surfaced, nothing could bury it again. Within minutes, the internet ignited whispers turned into roars. And suddenly every corner of social media was ablaze with questions no one wanted to answer. The audio wasn't supposed to exist. Recorded in what sounded like a private suite, hushed laughter, muffled background music. The kind of setting where powerful people let their guards down. It captured more than words. It captured tone, emotion, the kind of vulnerability that shouldn't belong to a man like Steve Sarowitz, the billionaire founder, philanthropist, and face of quiet influence. In those few seconds, everything changed. Claire Obb's voice, soft, steady, and dangerously close, responded with the kind of familiarity that erased all doubt. There was history there. There was something deeper. The world didn't just hear two people talking. It heard betrayal, tension, and the echo of something forbidden. When the clip began circulating on private forums, it spread like wildfire before anyone could stop it. At first, many refused to believe it was real. It's AI, they claimed. Deepfake audio. Edited, but as experts began dissecting the recording, voices matched, waveforms aligned. Forensic sound analysts confirmed what millions feared. The recording was authentic, and that confirmation hit like an earthquake. The man known for his calm, calculated business image was suddenly at the center of a story filled with emotion, secrecy, and a connection that seemed to cross every line of professionalism. Behind closed doors, crisis teams scrambled. Legal representatives worked around the clock, issuing quiet cease and desist notices to online outlets. But the internet moves faster than silence. Within 24 hours, hashtags began trending worldwide. Hashtag Steve Saro Witz leak, hashtag Claire AUB audio, hashtag hidden truth. Every repost, every reaction video, every slowdown replay added more fuel to the fire. For the first time, the narrative was out of corporate control, driven by public curiosity and digital outrage. Then came the second blow, the connection to Blake Lively. It started with one thread on Reddit. An analysis claiming Blake's recent cryptic post, a black and white photo caption, "Sometimes silence speaks louder than words," was about the scandal. Within hours, tabloids picked it up. Theories bloomed. Was she involved somehow? Was she a friend, a confidant, or another piece of this web no one saw forming? People began connecting dots that might never have existed, but in the world of viral chaos, perception is reality. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about an audio leak. It was about power, fame, and the silent machinery that hides truth beneath luxury and influence. Meanwhile, those close to Steve and Claire described the atmosphere around them as electric with fear. Meetings were canceled, phones went unanswered. Even longtime colleagues admitted they didn't recognize the man they saw in the headlines. Claire, once praised for her grace and intellect, vanished from the public eye entirely. Her social accounts went dark, and as silence grew, so did the speculation. Was this just a misunderstanding, or the unraveling of something much bigger than anyone dared imagine? In the leaked conversation, there was one line that echoed louder than all others. Steve's voice, weary yet passionate, saying, "They'll never understand what this means." It wasn't just a statement, it was a confession. And that single sentence became the spark that ignited every headline, every YouTube analysis, every late-night discussion about what really went on behind the scenes. What did it mean? What was so powerful, so secret, that they, whoever they were, would never understand? The internet turned into a crime scene, with every viewer playing detective, dissecting tone, pauses, and breaths as if decoding a message hidden beneath the noise. Even mainstream outlets, initially cautious, couldn't resist the gravitational pull of the story. CNN, TMZ, and Variety all ran coverage, some sympathetic, others ruthless. Meanwhile, clips of the leak were re-uploaded hundreds of times despite takedown attempts. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It had become cultural theater. People wanted to know who betrayed whom, who recorded whom, and most chillingly, what the leak revealed about the private lives of those who pretend to have it all figured out. And in the heart of the storm was Claire, once admired for her intelligence and presence, now painted as the mysterious woman who held the key to it all. Her friends described her as terrified but defiant. Some claimed she knew the recording existed but never thought it would see the light of day. Others insisted she was framed, her trust weaponized against her. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. She wasn't just another name in the scandal. She was the symbol of it, the woman whose voice could bring down an empire. Through all of this, Steve maintained silence. No statements, no denials, no explanations, just silence, and that silence became its own kind of confession. Because in the world of headlines and hashtags, when you say nothing, the world writes your story for you. Yet behind every scandal lies something deeper, a motive, a heartbreak, a truth hidden beneath performance. Those who followed Steve's career know he's not a man easily cornered. To his followers, he's been a visionary, a man of philanthropy, deeply spiritual, someone who built bridges where others burned them. But to skeptics, that very calmness now feels like the mask that hid everything. The leak didn't just question his character, it questioned the very foundation of his empire, built on trust and integrity. And as for Claire, the silence surrounding her has become louder than any words she could ever say. Some insiders claim she's preparing to tell her side. Others say she's been warned to stay quiet. But one undeniable truth remains. Whatever happened between them, emotional, professional, or both, it's not just gossip. It's a window into how the powerful live in shadows, how secrets become currencies, and how, in the end, every hidden truth finds its voice. By the time the public realized the scale of what they were witnessing, the story had already evolved beyond control. What began as a private recording had become a mirror, reflecting everything people love and hate about fame, power, and human weakness. And somewhere in that reflection, between guilt and silence, between truth and rumor, one question began haunting everyone who listened to that audio. Was it a mistake? Or was it a message meant to be heard? If the leak was the storm, the aftermath was the flood, unstoppable, merciless, and drowning everyone it touched. In the days that followed, the internet wasn't just watching, it was dissecting, judging, and rewriting reality in every frame of Steve's old interviews, every clipped quote, every side glance was suddenly evidence. Analysts on YouTube turned into digital detectives, syncing his gestures from past press conferences with the audio's tone, claiming they saw guilt hidden in plain sight. And perhaps that was the cruelest part, how the world that once adored him was now tearing him apart. Piece by piece, pixel by pixel. For Claire O.B., it was worse. Overnight, her name transformed from quiet respect to global obsession. Strangers dug through her old photos, speculated on her expressions, even zoomed into background reflections, hoping to uncover proof of where the recording might have taken place. Some defended her, calling her the real victim of manipulation and power imbalance, while others painted her as the mastermind of the betrayal. There was no middle ground left, no safe space to breathe. Her silence became ammunition. Every day she stayed quiet, the narrative shifted further from her control. Friends whispered that she barely slept, that she avoided her reflection, that the world had turned her voice, once her greatest strength, into the weapon that destroyed her. Behind the curtains, powerful people moved quickly. PR firms, lawyers, and crisis managers worked overtime to sanitize the digital wreckage. Confidential meetings were held in glass towers where tempers flared and voices rose. There were rumors of settlements, hush agreements, even secret attempts to trace the origin of the leak, who recorded it, who shared it, who stood to gain from its release. And yet, every answer only opened new questions, because, as the chaos deepened, another layer began to surface. Was this really just about two people, or was it about the empire they were both a part of? Steve Sarowitz wasn't just a name, he was a symbol. A man whose success represented stability and wisdom, a trusted figure in philanthropy and innovation. His downfall wasn't entertainment, it was disruption. Investors began to panic quietly, partnerships hesitated, and boardrooms trembled under the weight of whispers that perhaps this leak wasn't accidental, perhaps someone wanted to see him fall. The recording, when listened to carefully, carried pauses, intentional silences that felt almost staged. Some claimed Claire had been baited, others suggested Steve had been blackmailed. What had started as a scandal was now a conspiracy. In one particularly haunting twist, an anonymous account released an extended version of the recording, a version that hadn't been heard before. It included a few extra seconds at the end, Steve's voice saying softly, "It's already too late." The world froze again. What did that mean? Too late for what? Theories spread like wildfire. Some said he was referring to a failing relationship. Others believed it hinted at something much darker, the end of a cover-up, the collapse of a secret that had been hidden for years. Suddenly, this wasn't just a moral scandal, it was a mystery. Then came the emotional ripple. People who had admired him felt betrayed. Those who envied him felt vindicated, and those who knew neither of them became addicted to the unfolding drama. Podcasts dissected motives. TikTok creators turned fragments of the audio into cinematic edits. News anchors debated whether this was a symptom of power, temptation, or loneliness. And beneath all the noise, a chilling truth began to surface. The story wasn't really about Steve or Claire anymore. It was about us, the audience, the mob, the watchers who crave truth but feast on destruction. In the middle of the chaos, Blake Lively's name resurfaced once more. She hadn't said a word since her cryptic post, but silence has power. Insiders claimed she had once collaborated with a foundation connected to Steve's projects. Others believed she had unknowingly stumbled into the emotional crossfire between two people living lives far more complicated than the public realized. The media turned her quiet into a canvas, painting rumors across it until even her truth seemed lost. What had started as one leak had now spread into a web connecting Hollywood, tech, and philanthropy. A modern myth built out of half-truths, digital fragments, and human pain. By week 3, the story had consumed everything around it. Talk shows turned the scandal into nightly entertainment. Hashtags became battlefields, one side defending Steve as a man cornered by jealousy and manipulation, the other calling him a hypocrite hiding behind wealth. And in the midst of it all, Claire's name kept trending. Not because of new revelations, but because people couldn't stop imagining what she might say if she ever spoke. Would she confess? Would she fight back? Would she expose something even larger? The world waited, impatient, merciless, and hungry. And then, unexpectedly, she did appear. A short video, filmed in dim light, her voice trembling but calm. No makeup, no studio, no PR filter. Just truth, or at least, her version of it. "You think you know what happened," she said softly, "but you've only heard what they allowed you to hear." That one line sent shockwaves through every platform. Who were they? The corporations? The media? Steve himself? Theories reignited like dry wood catching fire. But then she ended it with a single phrase that silenced everyone. "He wasn't supposed to love me." That was it. No names, no dates, no proof. Just emotion raw enough to feel real. Within hours, the clip reached millions. Reactions poured in, some heartbroken, some enraged, some in awe of her courage. Suddenly, she wasn't a villain or a victim anymore. She was a mystery rewritten. And for Steve, who still hadn't spoken a single public word, the silence grew deafening. Every day he refused to comment. The story twisted further, shaping him into the villain of his own legend. Yet deep down, people began to realize something haunting. This scandal had become too perfect, too dramatic, too symmetrical. Could it be that someone had orchestrated all of it, leaked, staged, and manipulated just enough to destroy trust on both sides? A handful of investigative journalists began connecting financial dots, tracing anonymous transactions, offshore accounts, and suspicious leaks timed to be accidental. One report even claimed the original file had been uploaded from a network tied to a rival conglomerate. If true, this wasn't a love story gone wrong, it was a corporate war disguised as heartbreak. Still, no amount of analysis could erase the emotional wreckage. Careers were damaged, reputations destroyed, families fractured, and beneath it all, two people once connected by something intimate, now bound forever by something tragic, were left standing in the wreckage of their own choices. There's something almost poetic about that. How in a world obsessed with image, one moment of truth can destroy everything carefully built over decades. Weeks later, when Steve finally broke his silence in a closed interview, his words were quiet, deliberate, almost ghostly. "You can lose money and rebuild it," he said, "but when trust breaks, that's the real bankruptcy." It wasn't an apology, nor a confession. It was an acknowledgement, a realization that whatever had been lost between him and Claire was beyond repair. Some found sympathy in his tone, others called it manipulation. But one thing was undeniable: his voice, once confident and unshakable, now carried the weight of a man who had seen the cost of truth. As for Claire, she disappeared again, not as an escape, but as survival. Some say she left the country. Others believe she's writing a book, ready to reclaim her story on her own terms. Whether we'll ever hear from her again doesn't matter anymore, because in the end, this story stopped being about them long ago. It became about the machinery that builds idols just to watch them fall, about the audience that demands authenticity but punishes those who show it. And maybe that's the real tragedy, not the scandal itself, but what it reveals about us, how we crave stories of love and ruin, of heroes and sinners, because deep down, they mirror the chaos we hide in ourselves. The audio may have been leaked, But what it truly exposed wasn't just a private moment between two people, it was the public's hunger for spectacle, and the haunting truth that, in this digital age, no secret stays buried forever. So when the final echo of that recording fades, when the headlines move on and the outrage cools, one question lingers, one that no PR statement can erase. Was this the story of two people who lost control? Or the story of a world that never had any to begin with? Or the story of a world that never had any to begin with? They say every storm leaves behind silence, but this silence was different. It wasn't peace. It was the kind that hums under your skin, the kind that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. replaying every word, every choice, every secret that can't be undone. When the world finally stopped shouting, when the hashtags faded and the headlines lost their shine, all that remained was truth, raw, unfiltered, and impossible to escape. Because once a secret is spoken, you can't unhear it. And for Steve Sarowitz and Claire Obb, there was no going back. Months had passed since the leak, but the shadow it cast refused to move. It lingered in boardrooms, in conversations whispered at dinner tables, in the subtle shift of tone whenever their names were mentioned. The empire that once stood untouchable now trembled beneath invisible cracks. Investors smiled for the cameras, but their eyes betrayed unease. Employees whispered that the air in the office felt heavier now, like everyone was waiting for something else to break. And somewhere behind that curtain of calm, Steve sat in silence, staring at a world that no longer looked like his. For the first time in his career, the power he built could no longer protect him. Reputation, that invisible armor forged over years of discipline and charm, had become paper-thin. Every appearance, every move, was analyzed under a microscope. His once charismatic speeches now sounded rehearsed. His charity events, once celebrated, were seen as image repair. Even his silence, which once commanded respect, now looked like guilt. The very qualities that made him untouchable had turned into chains around his own name. But the real story wasn't happening in headlines anymore. It was unfolding in private, behind glass walls, inside his mind. Friends described him as a ghost of himself, calm but distant, reflective to the point of obsession. He wasn't chasing money now. He was chasing meaning. Those who met him said he had become philosophical, even fragile, asking questions most people spend lifetimes avoiding. Do you think truth is worth it? He had asked one associate quietly, if it costs everything. The man didn't know how to answer, because how do you respond to someone who's already lost everything trying to find it? Meanwhile, far from the spotlight, Claire had started her own quiet transformation. Gone was the woman who trembled in fear of judgment. In her place grew something fierce, a woman who understood the cost of silence and the power of her own voice. She began to write. At first in secret journals filled with half-remembered moments, emotions too sharp to say aloud. But soon, those words turned into chapters. A manuscript emerged, raw and unfiltered. Not about scandal, but about survival. The anatomy of betrayal, the psychology of shame, and the strange beauty of truth when it finally stops hiding. When rumors of her book leaked, the internet roared back to life. She's cashing in. She's exposing him. She's rewriting the story. But Claire didn't respond. She didn't have to. Because this time, she wasn't defending a reputation. She was reclaiming her narrative. And as excerpts from her draft began to circulate, readers found something unexpected. Not vengeance, but vulnerability. In her words, she didn't paint Steve as a villain or herself as a saint. She wrote about two people lost inside the illusion